There's a moment that happens to every empath who thinks they've healed. Someone you love looks at you with genuine tenderness and says something simple, "I love you," or "You're beautiful," or "Thank you for existing." And your body recoils. Not dramatically, but there's this tightening in your chest, this sudden need to deflect or turn the compliment around like a hot coal you can't hold. Your mind is screaming that this is what you wanted, but your nervous system is whispering something older, something that remembers every time love came with a price you couldn't afford. Meet Elena. 34, therapy veteran shadow work practitioner. She can name her triggers, set boundaries, articulate her needs with precision. She doesn't chase anymore, doesn't overgive until empty. By every measurable standard, she's done the work. Watch what happens when her 7-year-old daughter runs up after school and says, "Mommy, I'm sorry I was grumpy this morning." Elena's mouth moves before her heart catches up. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry too." But wait, what is she apologizing for? Her daughter is offering repair. Elena did nothing wrong, yet somehow her body decided this tenderness is dangerous. Give it back. Make yourself equal. Don't hold more love than you give. This is the moment most people miss. The one that happens after you've read all the books and done all the therapy. The moment when love shows up real, unconditional, asking nothing, and you realize you know how to survive without love. You've learned to protect yourself from harm, but you never learned how to let treasure in. Notice what happens in your own body when someone genuinely sees you. When a friend says, not just "thank you," but "thank you for being exactly who you are." Watch how your shoulders tense, how your breath becomes shallow, how you immediately start planning what to say back, what to give back, how to make yourself worthy of what you just received. This isn't conscious, it's cellular. It's your nervous system running a program written decades ago in a world where love felt conditional, temporary, always one mistake away from disappearing. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. For empaths, that fate is this: you will forever be the one who gives, who holds, who carries. And you will die without knowing what it feels like to be caught when you fall. Not because you're broken or chose the wrong people, but because somewhere, long ago, your nervous system learned that receiving love was more dangerous than going without it. Before we go deeper, if you've ever felt your body reject the very thing your heart was begging for, if you've wondered why being loved feels harder than being alone, then this message is for you. We're about to walk through territory most people never name, let alone heal. Here's what Elena couldn't see about herself, what maybe you can't see yet. She had become two people. There was the Elena who showed up in the world, competent, boundaried, articulate about her healing. This Elena could explain attachment theory and nervous system regulation. She presented as someone who'd arrived at wholeness. This is what depth psychology calls the persona, the mask we wear not to deceive, but to survive. But underneath, there was another Elena, still 8 years old, watching her mother's face to see if the love would stay or if she'd said something wrong. The one who learned that affection came with weather patterns, warm one moment, glacial the next, and the only way to predict the storm was to be very, very good. This Elena never got the memo that she'd grown up. She was still scanning every room for threats, still performing to keep love from leaving, still convinced that if she stopped being useful, she'd discover what she'd always suspected, that she was never actually chosen, just tolerated as long as she earned her place. This fracture in the human soul, the split between who we think we are and who we're terrified we might be, lives at the heart of shadow work. For most people, the shadow holds parts deemed unacceptable: anger, selfishness, hunger for forbidden things. But for empaths, for people who feel everything, your shadow holds something different. It holds permission to receive, the right to be loved without performing, the freedom to need without apologizing, the possibility that your sensitivity isn't a burden to tolerate, but a gift to treasure. These truths got exiled into darkness, not because they were evil, but because they felt dangerous. Every time young Elena reached for unconditional love, she learned it came with conditions she could barely meet. Be helpful, don't be needy. Feel what they feel. Don't burden them with what you feel. Be the one who understands, never the one who needs understanding. Think about your own childhood for a moment. Maybe you remember the first time you reached for comfort and got criticism instead. The first time you expressed a need and saw disappointment flash across your parents' face. The first time your sensitivity was met with, "You're too sensitive," or "Don't be so dramatic," or "Other kids don't react this way." Each of those moments was a small exile, a tiny banishment of the parts of you that needed tending. And your brilliant adaptive nervous system learned receiving equals danger, giving equals safety performance, equals love. So she adapted brilliantly, the way all sensitive children adapt when the world is too sharp for their tender skin. She learned to give, to feel safe, to caretake, to feel valued, that love was something earned through service, through emotional labor, through being the one who never needed anything back. And now, 30 years later, her body remembers. Even when her mind knows different, even when she's with a partner who genuinely wants to love her, without contracts, her nervous system still runs. The old program, love isn't safe. Love requires performance. Love will leave the moment you stop earning it. This is why understanding doesn't heal you. Why reading about boundaries doesn't mean you can hold them. Why knowing you're worthy doesn't mean you can receive. Because healing isn't information, it's transformation. It's teaching your body what your mind is beginning to believe, that you can be loved for existing, not producing. That your sensitivity is medicine, not pathology. That the right people won't be overwhelmed by your depth, they'll be nourished by it. But your shadow doesn't know this yet. Your shadow is still that child who learned to be small, helpful, convenient. Who learned her real feelings were too much. Her needs were burdens, that love was something to earn and re-earn every single day. So when love shows up now, the kind that doesn't ask for performance, your shadow panics. If I don't earn this, I can't control it. If I can't control it, I can't predict it. If I can't predict it, I can't protect myself when it leaves. That's the wound beneath the wound. Not that you can't receive love, but that you're terrified to trust it. Because the love you received as a child taught you that tenderness was seasonal, conditional, revocable. That the weather could change without warning. That you could do everything right and still end up alone. Elena's breaking point came on an ordinary Tuesday. She'd spent the day hyper-aware of her patterns, catching herself in moments of deflection. When her partner made her coffee exactly how she liked it, she stopped herself from saying, "You didn't have to." When her colleague complimented her presentation, she resisted the urge to minimize it. She was getting better at noticing. But noticing didn't stop the pattern. It just made her more aware of how automatic it was, how deeply wired into her system. That night, her partner said something that cracked her open. "I feel like you don't believe me when I tell you I love you." And Elena felt something shatter, not painfully, but like ice breaking after a long winter. He was right. She didn't believe him. Not because he was lying, but because love still felt too good to be true, like a dream she'd wake from, like a gift that would be taken back the moment she stopped earning it. "I think I'm still waiting for you to realize I'm too much," she whispered. "That I feel too deeply, need too much, that I'm complicated. And then leave." That was the moment her shadow became conscious. The moment she could see the terrified child inside, who'd been running the show, who'd learned that being herself, sensitive, deep feeling, was too risky, that love was something earned by being less. And in that moment of seeing, something shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but seen. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness conscious. Elena's darkness wasn't evil, just terrified. It had been protecting her the only way it knew, by keeping love at arm's length, where it couldn't hurt when it left. But what if it didn't have to leave? What if some people could actually hold her complexity? What if her depth wasn't too much for the right people? Here's what changed after that conversation: nothing and everything. Elena didn't suddenly become good at receiving love. She didn't wake up miraculously healed, able to accept compliments without flinching. The patterns were still there: the deflection, the automatic apology, the impulse to give back immediately. But something underneath had shifted. She could see it happening. Now, feel her body preparing to reject love the moment it arrived. And instead of judging herself or forcing herself to receive correctly, she just stayed with it. This is what active imagination looks like: engaging consciously with unconscious parts of yourself. Not to eliminate them, but to be in relationship with them. Elena started talking to her shadow like a frightened child. I see you. I see how hard you've worked to keep us safe. I see how you learned love was conditional and dangerous. Thank you for protecting us. But we're going to try something different now. We're going to practice staying when love shows up just a moment longer than before. Then she started small. When her daughter said, "I love you," instead of immediately bouncing it back like a reflex, Elena paused. Just 3 seconds. She let the words land in her chest, felt the warmth of being loved, felt her impulse to reciprocate, to earn her place in that moment, to prove her worth. And she breathed. 3 seconds of just receiving. It felt excruciating, like standing naked, like being selfish and wrong and taking something unearned. But she stayed. And then, only then, she said, "I love you too, sweetheart." Not from obligation or fear, but from fullness. This is the practice no one teaches empaths, this tiny radical act of letting love exist for a moment, without immediately doing something about it. When her partner touched her hand while watching TV, instead of automatically squeezing back or pulling away, she just felt it. Felt what it was like to be reached for, chosen in such a small, ordinary way, wanted without having to perform, wanting back. When her friend texted gratitude instead of immediately typing something bigger to prove equal appreciation, Elena just read it. Let it sink in, felt her body's resistance to receiving unearned appreciation, and stayed anyway. She started noticing the pattern everywhere. At work, when someone held the door for her, her automatic response was, "Oh, you didn't have to," or "sorry." But why was she apologizing for existing? For taking up space in a doorway, she practiced simply saying, "Thank you," and walking through. No apology, no performance, just acknowledgement and acceptance. When the barista made her usual order, without her having to ask, instead of over-explaining or making it about them, "You're so good at remembering," she just smiled and said thank you. Let herself be known. Let herself be someone worth remembering. Let that small moment of being seen land without deflecting it. This wasn't about becoming better at receiving. It was about staying present with how terrifying receiving actually felt. Because you can't think your way out of a nervous system response, can't analyze your way into feeling safe, can't understand your way into trusting love. You have to teach your body slowly, patiently, one breath at a time, that love can arrive without punishment following. Elena's nervous system had decades of evidence that love was dangerous, that it came with expectations she could barely meet, that her sensitivity was too much, that being herself meant being alone. You don't override that learning with affirmations or willpower. You override it with new experience, with staying just a moment longer in the presence of genuine care, with letting love land even when every instinct screams to deflect, with breathing through the discomfort of being fully seen and discovering the world doesn't end. This is the transcendent function, the ability to hold two opposite truths simultaneously without collapsing. For Elena, this meant learning to hold, "I want love," and "love feels dangerous" in the same breath. "I deserve care," and "care terrifies me" in the same moment. "I'm healing," and "I'm still scared" in the same body. Not resolving the tension, not making one truth win, just allowing both to be real. She learned to recognize the specific sensations in her body that signaled her shadow was activating. The tightness in her throat when someone complimented her, the flutter of anxiety in her chest when someone offered help, the sudden urge to change the subject when someone saw her vulnerability. Instead of automatically following those impulses, she'd pause, place her hand on her heart, breathe, and silently acknowledge, "My shadow is trying to protect me right now. Thank you, but I'm safe. I can let this love in." And when she did this, when she stopped trying to fix herself into someone who could receive love correctly, when she stopped fighting her shadow and started listening, the love started landing. Not perfectly, not every time, but more and more. Elena found herself able to simply be loved without performing love, back immediately, without earning her place, without apologizing for needing tenderness. Her daughter would curl up next to her on the couch, and instead of immediately asking if she needed anything, Elena would just let herself be the safe place by being present. Her partner would cook dinner, and instead of jumping up to help, Elena would watch him move through the kitchen, feel the discomfort of not earning it, and stay anyway. Her friend would say, "I see your tender heart." And instead of deflecting with, "I'm fine," Elena would just let the words exist. Let herself be seen, be known in her struggle, be loved, not despite her sensitivity, but because someone recognized it as the gift it was. This transformation happens gradually, like spring arriving one warm day at a time. Your shadow begins learning that maybe it's safe to be loved, that maybe your sensitivity isn't a curse, but a capacity, that maybe the right people won't run from your depth, but dive in with you. That maybe after years of earning and performing and proving, you could just be and be loved for it. 6 months into this practice, Elena's life looked the same from outside, same partner, daughter, job, friends. But inside there was a quietness that hadn't been there before, a settledness like her nervous system had finally stopped running. She wasn't healed in the way she'd imagined. She still had moments where receiving felt impossible, where someone's kindness would hit like a spotlight, and every cell would scream to run, deflect, make this about them instead. But now she knew what was happening. She could feel her shadow reaching up to protect her from danger that wasn't real anymore. And instead of following or fighting that impulse, she could acknowledge it. "There you are, my old friend. I know you're scared. But look, this person loves us, and they're still here. We can let this in." The practice became less about performing receiving correctly, and more about staying in relationship with herself while love was happening. When her partner said, "You're beautiful," Elena didn't deflect. She also didn't force a hollow thank you. She just looked at him, really looked, saw that he meant it, felt her body want to minimize, felt her shadow want to protect her from disappointment. And she breathed. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes just nodded, sometimes said, "I'm learning to believe you," sometimes nothing at all. Because receiving isn't about the response, it's about the staying, about not running from the discomfort of being cherished. Her daughter noticed something had changed, though she didn't have words for it. She just knew that sometimes now, when she hugged her mother didn't immediately start doing something. Sometimes she just hugged back, fully present for receiving love, instead of already planning how to give it back. One evening, her daughter whispered into her shoulder, "You feel different, Mama." "Different how?" "Like you're here more." And Elena understood. She was here more because she wasn't halfway out the door of her own life, waiting for the other shoe to drop, wasn't performing gratitude, while secretly believing she didn't deserve it. She was learning slowly, imperfectly, to trust that she could be fully known and still be held, that her sensitivity wasn't a burden. Her needs didn't make her weak. Her depth wasn't too much for people who had their own depth. The friendships that had always felt one-sided began to shift. Elena noticed which friends genuinely wanted reciprocity and which had grown comfortable with her always being the giver. The ones who stayed were the ones who'd been waiting for permission to love her back. One friend told her, "I've always wanted to show up for you, but you never let me. It's like you didn't trust me enough to need me." That landed hard. Elena realized her self-sufficiency wasn't just protection, it was also a statement about who she thought was worthy of holding her. By never needing anything, she'd been saying, "You can't handle me. I'm too much. I'll handle myself." Learning to receive from friends meant letting them see her in moments of struggle without immediately minimizing it or turning the focus back to them. It meant saying, "I'm having a hard week," and not following it with, "But I'm fine," or, "But tell me about you." It meant letting them bring soup when she was sick, letting them sit with her when she was sad, letting them celebrate her wins without deflecting praise. At work, Elena started noticing how she'd volunteer for extra projects to prove her worth, how she'd stay late to be the helpful one, how she'd take on emotional labor that wasn't hers to carry. She began practicing something revolutionary, doing her job well and going home. Accepting praise for her work without immediately pointing to everyone else's contributions. Saying no to requests that depleted her without elaborate justification. And discovering that her worth wasn't contingent on being endlessly available. This is what individuation looks like, the process of becoming who you actually are, not who you think you need to be to survive. For Elena, it meant shedding the persona of the person who never needs anything, integrating her shadow, the parts that were needy, vulnerable, tender, sometimes overwhelming. It meant trusting she could be all those things and still be loved, not by everyone that was never the promise, but by her people, by the ones with capacity to hold her complexity. She started teaching her daughter something she'd never been taught, that needing help is human, that asking for support is strength, that your worth isn't determined by how little you require from others. When her daughter struggled with homework, and Elena's first instinct was to fix it immediately, she paused. "This is hard, isn't it? Do you want help, or do you want to try it yourself first?" Teaching her daughter that she had choices, that needing wasn't shameful, that Mama could hold both her capability and her need. A year after that conversation, where Elena admitted she didn't believe his love was real, something happened that showed how far she'd come. They were lying in bed on a Saturday morning, light streaming through the window. No plans, just presence. Her partner looked at her. In that way he did, like he was really seeing her, all of her. And he said, "I'm so grateful you exist." Old Elena would have deflected immediately. Shadow work, Elena would have white-knuckled her way through receiving. But this Elena just let it in. Felt the words land like seeds in her chest. Felt her eyes fill with tears, not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of being loved without earning it. Felt how her body, instead of tensing, softened. And she whispered, "I'm learning to believe you." That was it. Not dramatic, just real. She could feel her shadow there, still protecting, still cautious, but not in control anymore. Just a part of her, the part that remembered when love felt dangerous, that learned to guard her heart because no one else would. She didn't need to eliminate or overcome it. Just thank it for keeping her safe and gently tell it, "We're okay now. We can let this love in." For the first time, Elena understood what it meant that the shadow isn't your enemy, but the part of you that's been exiled waiting to come home. Her shadow had been holding all the parts that felt too vulnerable, too needy, too much. The parts that wanted to be chosen without performing, that needed tenderness without apologizing, that believed she deserved love, not because of what she did, but who she was. And now those parts were integrating, coming back, being welcomed. Not fixed, not perfected, just included. This is what happens when empaths learn to truly receive love after the shadow work, after the staying, after the practice. You don't become someone different. You become someone more whole. You can give from overflow instead of depletion, love without losing yourself, care for others while letting others care for you. You teach your children a different way, where sensitivity is honored, where needing help isn't weakness, where love doesn't require performance. You become living proof that tender hearts can not only survive, but thrive. That people who feel deeply can also rest deeply. That your sensitivity, the very thing you've spent years apologizing for, is actually your greatest strength. Because the world doesn't need more people who've numbed themselves to survive. It needs people like you, who've stayed tender, who've kept feeling, who've chosen to remain open even after being hurt. Right now, wherever you are, place your hand on your heart. Feel your heartbeat. That's your tender, brave, sensitive soul that's been working so hard to earn love it already deserves. Say this not as performance, but as truth. I am worthy of receiving love. Feel how your body responds. Notice if your shadow rejects it, if part of you whispers, but only if, or not really, or I have to earn it first. And then gently, kindly say to that part, "Thank you for protecting me. But I'm learning something new. I'm learning I can be fully myself and still be loved, that my sensitivity is a gift, my depth is treasure, that the right people won't run from my complexity, they'll cherish it." This is the practice. Not once, but again and again. Every time love shows up, and your body wants to flinch every time someone sees you fully, and you want to hide every time you're offered care, and your instinct is to deflect, breathe. Let it land just a moment longer than before. That's how you heal, not by becoming invulnerable, but by slowly teaching your nervous system that love can arrive without danger, that you can be seen and still be safe, that you can need tenderness and still be strong, that your sensitivity makes you more capable of love, not less deserving of it. You're choosing right now to become someone who can receive love. Not perfectly, not every time, but you're learning to trust you're worthy of it. Not because you've earned it through years of giving, not because you've finally done enough shadow work, not because you've become less complicated or less sensitive, but because you are you. And that has always been enough. Your sensitivity is your superpower. Your depth is your gift. Your tender heart is exactly what this world needs. And you, exactly as you are shadow and light together, deserve to be loved.